Good evening and welcome to the Emma Goldman Clinic's Choice event. Tonight's silent auction will close at 7:45 p.m., so make sure you get all of your bids in within the next hour. My name is Amber Fricke, and I am co-chair of the Emma Goldman Clinic Board of Directors with Lucy Gallo. Thank you for coming in from the cold to help us celebrate the 39th anniversary of Roe v. Wade and the Emma Goldman Clinic. It was only last week that we experienced our first major snowstorm of the season. However, the reproductive rights environment has been chilled for quite some time and is in danger of getting colder. In times like this, it is so refreshing to warm up with like-minded friends to support the community clinic of choice, the Emma Goldman Clinic.
Thank you very much for being here. I'm Lucy Gallo. I'm the co-chair of the board at the Emma Goldman. We're going to start the evening recognizing a lot of people, so there will be a lot of standing and sitting and up and down, but we just really feel like we need to recognize the people that have really helped us out throughout the years. We're going to start by giving our appreciation to the Emma Goldman staff and volunteers. It really isn't every day that you run into people that are able and willing to do the work that they do on a daily basis. They don't do the work for money. They don't do it for glamour. While the job definitely has its rewards, absolutely, it can be very thankless. They do all the job on their own for their own personal reasons, but ultimately because they're caring, brave people who are able to weather many a storm on a daily basis, all while providing quality, non-judgmental services for women and men. We would like to start with the co-directors, recognizing the co-directors, Francine Thompson and Jennifer Price. We would like to thank them as the board especially. We recognize their leadership, your vision that you have for the clinic, and your ability to just inspire confidence in the really important work that you do. So thank you very much. Next, we would like staff, volunteers, physicians, practicum students to rise so we can express appreciation to you. Thank you for all the work you do. Also, if you have ever worked or volunteered at the Emma Goldman Clinic, could you please rise? Thank you for your work. A nonprofit cannot run efficiently without the work of its board of directors. We would also like to recognize the commitment to women's rights, healthcare, and governance the Emma Goldman Clinic Board of Directors offers. Will the Board of Directors please stand so we can thank you for your community service? We are a very small group right now, so we are recruiting highly qualified women to be on the board. Talk to me later if you're interested. I am proud to say that 100% of the proceeds from tonight's dinner will go to the DePross Access Fund. In the past, it has not, so this is a really good. This fund allows us to subsidize abortion services for low-income women at the Emma Goldman Clinic. Our fund is named after Dr. Charles DePross, who has been a strong and consistent supporter of the Emma Goldman Clinic and the right of women to control their fertility. Dr. DePross has played a very important part in the feminist healthcare movement. Please join me in thanking our long-term friend and activist, Dr. Charles DePross, who is here tonight. As you are all aware, financial concerns can be an important factor for a woman who is faced with an unintended pregnancy. Additionally, financial accessibility can be a barrier for a woman who has chosen to have an abortion. Last year, the Emma Goldman Clinic provided subsidies for 2,400 women in the amount of $99,642 through the DePross Access Fund. We are only able to do this with your help and because of the attendance at this event and the generous contributions. So thank you very much. Thank you all very much for being here and helping. Yeah. Okay, we're going to recognize a few other people here. Jessica Hook. Being a board member is a very gratifying and a challenging experience. We would like to thank a former board member who has raised the bar being a board member. She served as secretary 1 year, chair for 2 years, served on several committees, acted as a mentor to several members on the board, and gave hundreds of hours to the clinic, serving 2 board terms. On behalf of the Emma Goldman Clinic board and the staff, I would like you to join me in recognizing Jessica Hook for her service. Jessica? Where are you at? I have a token of our appreciation for you as well. Will you grab that for me? Appreciation. On behalf of the board of directors and the clinic, we want to give you this small token of appreciation. Do you want to read to me, please? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was asked to prepare a little something about my service on the board and encouraging people to serve on the board. So this comes as a little bit of a surprise, but I really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Like many people in Iowa City, I moved here to attend graduate school. The plan was to be here for about 5 years and then move on. Well, that was 10 years ago. And by the time I finished my degree, I'd fallen in love with Iowa City and Iowa and had no intention of leaving. I first learned about the Emma Goldman Clinic in 2003. I'd heard that there was going to be a national march in DC, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I went to a fundraiser for the March for Women's Lives, and there I met Karen Cubby. And at the time, I didn't realize that she was the executive director of the clinic. But we had a really great conversation about a whole host of issues about reproductive rights. And I left that event with some information about the Emma Goldman Clinic and knew that I wanted to learn more about the clinic. So over the next several months, I started attending Emma events like this one and learned more about the clinic and started volunteering at the clinic. And I can vividly remember my first choice dinner. It was in 2004, and it was at the IMU, and I can remember walking up the steps to the ballroom, and though I only knew at that time maybe 2 or 3 people at the event, I felt this really just strong sense of positive energy when I walked into the room, and a really strong sense of belonging. And I left that night really, really wanting to know more about the Emma Goldman Clinic. So I began my service on the Emma Goldman Clinic 2 years after that, and at that time I had just finished graduate school and started working as a scientist doing basic science research, and was really looking for some way to be involved in the community and kind of have something to kind of balance my work, this very cerebral work that I was doing. Serving on the board gave me the opportunity to put some of my skills to work for a great nonprofit organization that has done so much for our community and for the state of Iowa. It also gave me the opportunity to gain new skills, to challenge myself to move outside my comfort zone, and most importantly, to meet some really, really amazing people. So I was fortunate enough to serve for 5 years on the board and count Emma folks as some of my dearest friends. The sense of belonging has only grown over the years, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of the Emma family. So if you have ever considered serving on the board or know someone who would be great, I know everyone out here knows several people who would be a great board member. I really encourage you to talk to Lucy and Amber or any of the other board members and pick up an application. Thanks.
Thank you, Jessica.
Our keynote speaker tonight is Clara Olson. Ms. Olson is a long-standing member of the Iowa City community. After law school at the University of Iowa, she practiced primarily in the areas of employment discrimination and family law. She then went on to work for almost 2 decades at the University of Iowa Labor Center, where she advised union members on their rights under labor law as well as civil rights laws. Ms. Olson has also been very active in Iowa politics and has been a steadfast advocate for women. Her work has not gone unnoticed. In 1995, the Women's Resource and Action Center, in conjunction with the Council on the Status of Women, honored Ms. Olson with the University of Iowa's Jean Jew Award. The award is given to those who demonstrate outstanding effort or achievement in improving the status of women on campus. In 2010, she was again honored with the Dawn's List Democratic Activist Women's Network Award. This award recognizes progressive, pro-choice Iowa women who have made a difference in the lives of other Iowans and in Iowa politics. We are honored to have Ms. Olson join us this evening. Please welcome Clara Olson, who is speaking on the fierce urgency of then.
Well, thank you. The fierce urgency of then, which of course is a takeoff on Martin Luther King's The Fierce Urgency of Now. When I talked to Tony, who was just wonderful to work with, about what she wanted me to talk about, I had said to her, you know, there's new poverty statistics about women out there, you know, there was this dead silence. I said, what do you want me to talk about? And she said, well, you know, you're old enough, you remember what it was like before Roe. So this is an old lady looking at you here. Prior to the nationwide legalization of abortion in the United States, information on the number and rate of abortions was not gathered, and estimates of illegal and self-induced abortions varied wildly. Prior to Roe, abortion was illegal in 30 states and legal in certain cases in 20 states. The women's liberation movement of the late 1960s in Iowa City followed and led a nationwide agenda. Keeping women alive was the first priority. Hence, battered women, women dying from abortions, and rape victims were primary concerns. Workplace fairness issues, non-stereotypical child rearing, theological reforms, literary resurrection of women authors, all were part of the landscape. But abortion reform was a priority because women were dying. In the current debate, this fact is insufficiently recognized. How many, who they were, what motivated them? Well, their silence of their graves tells no secrets. But our political and emotional mantra became, no more dead women. Notably, lesbian women were, in my observation, the backbone of this commitment. I think because, unlike the dominant culture, they loved women, they respected them, they honored them, they listened to them, they acted from a sense of sisterhood because they were wonderfully free of misogyny. For in retrospect, it is the misogyny of the period which is the dominant fact. Hatred of women, powerful, widespread, deep, hatred of women's ability to reason, to love, to make moral choices. Still now pervasive, but rarely seen as evil, its scope rarely charted. Misogyny kills women, and it fills our lungs and silences women. And if you think I misstate or overstate, think about this. Tell me the name of a nation, a real one, not Amazons, not chimpanzees, which has ever been dominated by women as a group. It takes a lot of hatred to keep that state of affairs going for decade after decade, century after century, for millennium. But these are wide propositions. And in this time of Ron Paul, we need an individual to make the point. So I give you Stella Zavostovsky, my maternal grandmother. When I was growing up, my mother rarely spoke of her mother, but she did tell me that my grandmother had lived in Tampa, Florida, and had died at 29 from tuberculosis. By 21, both of my parents were dead, and the maternal grave carried many secrets. For my mother had grown up in a poverty so severe, so total, that the only response she could manage was shame. Dead women and ashamed women rarely tell their own stories. I had gleaned that my mother was one of 3 children, that her 2 sisters and herself had been orphaned at a young age and moved in with a Spanish family of 13 children, that they had survived in the cold water tenements of Brooklyn by working at home sweatshops, making cigars, embroidering shoes, sewing lampshades, stringing beads. No school, only work, at 11 years of age. My mother was dead at 49 from diabetes and childhood poverty, and she told me none of this. I had begun to pry these facts from her 2 surviving sisters, who could at least talk about their childhood, but only in terms of the Depression. But the backdrop story of my grandmother was draped in shame and secrecy. My own behavior, my failure to become a mother, ironically, lifted the veil of secrecy. For when I was 31, my Aunt Violet, to encourage me to become a mother, presented me with 3 shopping bags full of baby clothes. They were new, they were lovely, they emanated complete hatred for me. I gave them to the cabbie at the end of an evening that was just beginning. With tears and fear, she opined that I was not a full human being, that motherhood would make me that maybe they had been wrong to lie to me. She then told me that my grandmother had not died from tuberculosis, but that she was a murderer. She had done a despicable act, was a woman who had died in sin from a self-induced abortion attempt in 1923. In 1923, when Stella Zavostovsky was 29, the mother of 3 daughters, but no one's wife. Those facts were told to me as the revelation of a dreadful family secret, as facts of shame in a Catholic home, of facts about a murderer whose children had never, ever visited her grave. The other sister, Carmen, living in Florida, ironically, wined and dined, told me this, quote, this is from my notes at the time. We lived in a white wooden house on a quiet street in Tampa. It wasn't large, but it had 2 stories. She sewed for us and kept us well dressed. I don't know if she was ever married to the men who fathered us. She was so beautiful. We came home one afternoon. I remember Violet was holding our hands and we found her. She was crumpled at the bottom of the stairs, inside the house, in blood, a wire in her hand. At the bottom of the stairs, in blood. No, I never visited her grave, unquote. After some research, I found the death certificate of Stella, dated July 17, 1923. It gives the cause of death as peritonitis. My cousin Stella and I went to her grave in Tampa. The city graveyard, long closed, was poorly tended, and its large cypress trees hung with Spanish moss. It made it seem like a stage set from Tennessee Williams. It was a cemetery shared by Jews, Italians, and Spaniards. A city block square bordered with an iron fence which kept out the nearby crumbling wooden working-class homes. The grave tender ushered us to a far corner, a brown patch of earth maybe 10 foot by 10 foot, no grass, no markers, no stones. He said, "Here, this is the pauper section. Here is where she's buried. She is here." Stella and I stood together, and the earth did not shake, the sun did not emerge. Understanding for me did not descend, only a yearning. I want no more dead women. There were thousands of women in the United States before Roe v. Wade who died from abortions. Some were younger than her, some older. Now one has a name for you, Stella Zavostovsky. Remember her story, and remember this. Current discussion of life and unborn children and sin is incomplete without recognition of the pervasive, widespread hatred of women, then and now. For those of you who have been privileged with money and birth dates to exercise the rights of Roe v. Wade, that law was made in the streets when 700,000 women marched for years and is steeped in the blood of our foremothers. The sin of that blood is complex and deep. We must never allow actual women to be demonized, trivialized, unloved, disrespected, or silenced. For someday, somehow, somewhere, we will be at peace on this issue. Perhaps technology will eliminate it. Perhaps we will finally find ideas and truth to create common ground. And somewhere, sometime, if we work at it very, very hard, there will be a territory, a country, a paradise, perhaps, where women are loved and respected, and the pervasive misogyny of human history is a distant memory. This old woman passes her history to you. Change the world. For the folks who work at Emma, and for all of those who are trying for that day, as we all should, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to kind of go into something that's not as it's kind of a bit sad. As some of you know, the Emma Goldman Medical Director, Dr. Robert Kretschmar, passed away this past summer. As a previous staff member and a current board member, I think I can speak for everyone that's connected with the clinic that we are heartbroken and that we all have an empty place in our hearts that will never be filled. Tonight we are celebrating Dr. Kretschmar's life. Dr. Kretschmar has touched thousands of women's lives in so many different ways, directly and indirectly, whether it was through educating medical students, educating Emma staff, educating a perfect stranger, or just direct patient care. Dr. Kretschmar didn't care who you were. He told you how it was when it came to women's health and women's rights. It was always very refreshing and a very rare thing to see. He was passionate about teaching others about women's rights. I know there's a lot more to say about Dr. Kretschmar, so I will leave it to Francine Thompson, the co-director of the clinic, who knew and worked very closely with Dr. Kretschmar for 25 years. Francine?
Good evening. So it's with some sadness, but it really is a pleasure and an honor to stand before you and to acknowledge Dr. Kretschmar's service as the Emma Goldman Clinic's medical director. I started working at the clinic in 1987, and so I had the privilege to work closely with him for the majority of his 26 years as medical director. We developed a close and mutually respectful relationship. He was my friend. And this evening, I want to make sure that in addition to the bullet points on his CV, that I share with you what I can about his passion for the work that he did at Emma. Bob had a passion for life and a zest for living. He maintained an unwavering quest for justice and a tremendous sense of purpose and responsibility. As much as anything, he loved learning and teaching. And those are just a few of the things that directed his work with the Emma Goldman Clinic. Bob was born in 1928 in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and after high school he joined the Army and served as a military policeman in Italy. He often talked about his stint as an NP, in addition to an internship at an inner-city hospital in Detroit, as the experiences that helped to solidify his commitment to women's reproductive health, including his views about abortion. He attended the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, completed residency training in surgery and in obstetrics and gynecology. He was an associate professor at the University of Iowa, and he was also professor and chair at the University of Missouri in Kansas City, the Department of OB-GYN. He enjoyed a long and a successful career as a physician, and his career highlights are well known to many of us that are in attendance tonight. He served as the past American Cancer Society president for the Iowa Division and as the vice chair of the National Professional Education Committee of the American Cancer Society. He was most proud of his development of real patient feedback systems for patient and physician evaluations in education. This included a psychosomatic medicine instruction system. The simulated patient training is a model he developed that is now used in medical schools across the nation. In 1985, after abortion service providers experienced a crisis in malpractice insurance that left the Emma Goldman Clinic unable to utilize the services of OB-GYN residents, they searched for a medical director that was also able to provide abortion services. The then collective management of the Emma Goldman Clinic approached Dr. Kretschmar, who had recently relocated from Kansas City and opened a private practice in the community. And in 1985, he agreed to become the medical director of the Emma Goldman Clinic. Yay. Dr. Bob could have a conversation about any topic. He saw that as a valuable social skill and a learnable one. And for years, he tried to teach the art of small talk to Jennifer and I. Things like that were important to him. So Jennifer and I undertook the task of trying to become more informed on different interesting topics and current events, so that when he came in twice a week, as he always did, and came upstairs and sat in the chair that was specifically placed there for them, we would be able to keep up our end of the conversation. And some days, we clearly bored him. And he would move on to other staff in more stimulating conversation. He knew something about everything, and not from surfing the World Wide Web. He got his info the good old-fashioned way: TV, books, newspapers, NPR, and good old-fashioned face-to-face communication. Like the Dos Equis man, he was indeed the most interesting man in the world. For months last spring, it was part of Jennifer's job to watch the Eagle Cam and come to work with updates so we could hold our own. First watching their hatching and then waiting for them to take flight. They left the nest the end of June. Bob left us 2 weeks later. It was this craving for knowledge and information sharing that made him the stellar educator, teacher, and mentor that he was. He saw learning and the acquisition of knowledge as the noblest pursuit of life. Dr. Kretschmar also believed in living a life of purpose. This desire was so strong that when he physically could no longer perform surgical procedures, we modified his contract so that he could do only non-surgical procedures. And when that was too taxing, we maintained his desire to continue his educational role by spending time orienting, teaching, and talking to medical students. In his many stages of retirement, he wanted to keep doing something. He called it a place to hang his shingle, an opportunity to keep his finger on the pulse and to have purpose. We enjoyed having him around, and we valued his work. He would tell us, as long as my mind is sharp, and it was. During his years in medicine, Dr. Kretschmar brought new lives and joy to many families. He delivered countless babies as an obstetrician. And despite what some critics may say, he delivered countless women. He delivered them of what sometimes seemed like a hopeless, helpless situation. He delivered them from facing all the complexities and potential hardships that an unplanned pregnancy might bring them. Sometimes he delivered them from themselves. Make no mistake, he saved lives. He advocated for women to take charge of their lives and to change their circumstances. Many of you know him from one of the many roles he played: teacher, educator, mentor, colleague, maybe he was even your deliverer. When I tried to find a word that described the role and purpose he served in regards to reproductive rights, none of the usual ones quite captured what I thought he personified. Yes, he was an advocate for women and for reproductive health care. And he was a champion of education and of learning. And in 1993, he was given a Champion for Choice Award by Planned Parenthood. He was also a self-proclaimed feminist. He recognized that there were a lot of inequities in this world, and his unwavering sense of justice and wanting to acknowledge power in relationships and to create balance whenever possible made him a feminist. Advocate, champion, feminist, and a kind, caring, and compassionate physician whose philosophy and practice included providing gentle care. But this evening, I am proclaiming him a hero. Every day that he walked into the Emma Goldman Clinic, he was a hero. Past the protesters and past the picketers with their signs, he was a hero. Sometimes even the clients who ask in one breath, "How can you provide abortions?" and in the next breath ask, "Can you please perform an abortion for me?" Every single abortion he performed was an individual act of bravery and heroism. There aren't many plaques and awards for abortion providers. Dr. DeProsh, you know that all too well. Providers have been harassed, intimidated, and even assassinated. You don't get a lot of praise or high regard from your colleagues in the medical community for providing abortions. But abortion providers are heroines and heroes. Dr. Kretschmar's reward was the feedback from women he provided abortion care for, the occasional sigh of relief, and the "thanks, doctor," as he was leaving the procedure room. Sometimes those were few and far between. And in 2002, he was nominated by the Emma Goldman Clinic and received the C. Layler Burdick Award from the National Abortion Federation. This award is given to unsung heroes in the movement. He was a hero. Not only did he save lives, but he helped them become the sheroes of their own lives. And he did that quite simply, by respecting and supporting the hard choices they made about parenting. He did that by providing high quality, supportive, and gentle abortion care. And Dr. Kretschmar died Thursday, July 14, 2011, at the age of 83. He'll be missed by his wife, Susan, his children, Jane, Jim, and Randy, his dogs, Kirby and Frisco, his friends and colleagues. The women of Iowa have lost an advocate, a champion, and a hero. The staff of the Emma Goldman Clinic will miss his wisdom and his presence. And when I talked to his wife, Susan, last week, I asked her if there was anything that she would want me to share. So for the heroic staff of the Emma Goldman Clinic, she said, "I just want you all to know how much he loved each and every one of you. He loved being a part of your clinic." I'm personally a better person for having known Dr. Kretschmar. He left me with a few things to aspire to. And like him, I hope to be a lifelong learner. I hope to be gentle and compassionate. I want to have purpose in what I do. And I want to do good works and seek justice. And I'm going to ask you to bear with us for just a little bit longer. We have a photo tribute, and I apologize for the jerkiness of it. It's a technology glitch, and it's the one glitch in an otherwise perfect evening. And so we'll get it straightened out when this is on PATV and on our Facebook page. So please enjoy this last tribute.
The clinic has a place in Iowa City. It's been functioning here for a great number of years in the current location since 1985, and that's when I became medical director. That's a long time.
I ain't lived forever, but I've lived enough. And I've learned to be gentle, and I've learned to be tough. I found only two things that last till the end. One is your heroes, the other's your friends. Your heroes will help you find good in yourself. Your friends won't forsake you for somebody else. They'll both stand beside you through thick and through thin. And that's how it goes with heroes and friends. I grew up with cowboys I watched on TV. My friends and I sometimes pretended to be. Years have gone by, but now and again, my heart rides the range with my heroes and friends. Your heroes will help you find good in yourself. Your friends won't forsake you for somebody else. They'll both stand beside you through thick and through thin. And that's how it goes with heroes and friends. Your heroes will help you find good in yourself. Your friends won't forsake you for somebody else. They'll both stand beside you through thick and through thin. And that's how it goes with heroes and friends. That's how it goes with heroes and friends.
Good quality care supportive care and gentle care. And I think that's what we provide. So it's still very rewarding for me to be a part of the Emma Goldman Clinic and to do my part in continuing to help women have abortions.
Thanks again for being here. We really appreciate everything you guys do to help support the clinic. And stay warm and be safe tomorrow.